There's something no one tells you when you cross the invisible line into your 50s. A slow, quiet shift begins to happen in your body, so silent you barely notice. You still feel strong, still feel capable, but deep inside, a war is starting. And for millions of men, it begins with one small organ that no one talks about until it's too late: the prostate. The truth is harsh, and most men don't hear it until they're sitting in a doctor's office hearing words they never thought would apply to them. But what if the damage didn't start yesterday? What if it began years ago, with just one thing you were doing every day, without ever knowing it was poisoning your future? What if it wasn't genetics or bad luck, but a habit, a product, or a decision you made at breakfast this morning? This isn't fear-mongering, this is survival. Because once prostate damage begins, it doesn't stop on its own. It grows in silence, fed by ignorance, routine, and the illusion that it won't happen to me. But if you're watching this right now, it's not too late. There is still time to understand what your body has been trying to tell you for years. Still time to unlearn the lie that aging means powerlessness. Still time to discover the one thing you must stop doing now before the damage becomes irreversible. If you're over 50, this message is not just for you, it's about you. It's about your nights, your sleep, your strength, your manhood, your peace of mind. The difference between freedom and regret could be hidden in the next few minutes of this video. So don't look away, don't scroll. Because by the time most men care about their prostate, it's already too late. Let's talk about what you must stop doing today if you want to save everything you've worked for. It often begins with something deceptively simple: a routine, a comfort, a daily choice that seems harmless, ordinary even. For many men over 50, this one thing hides in plain sight, wrapped in marketing, convenience, and habit. You see it in every grocery store aisle. You hear it recommended by friends. It's part of your breakfast, your lunch. Sometimes it even feels like self-care. But beneath the surface, it's doing something your body can no longer tolerate. It's quietly fueling inflammation, disrupting hormones, and slowly strangling the health of your prostate. The male body is resilient, yes, but after 50, that resilience becomes selective. What once passed through without consequence now leaves a mark.
The metabolism slows, testosterone levels dip, and the prostate, small, silent, but crucial, starts reacting to things it once ignored. The foods you once ate without worry now set off microscopic chain reactions. And the worst offender? It's not something exotic or rare. It's something most men consume every single day: excessive refined sugar. You might think sugar is harmless. After all, it's just a sweetener. It's everywhere, in your cereal, your morning coffee, that energy bar in the car. But here's what most men don't realize. Sugar doesn't just spike your blood sugar. It destabilizes your entire hormonal system. It leads to increased estrogen levels, decreased testosterone, and chronic inflammation, all of which directly contribute to prostate enlargement and dysfunction. Over time, this low-grade inflammation becomes a breeding ground for problems no man wants to face: frequent urination, weak flow, discomfort, even serious disease. And yet, no one tells you. No doctor pulls you aside at 51 to say, "That orange juice you're drinking, it has more sugar than a soda, and your prostate is paying the price." No one warns you that the body you built in your 30s cannot handle the same fuel in your 50s. You're left to figure it out yourself, after the symptoms begin. After you wake up for the third time in one night to go to the bathroom. After the intimacy in your relationship starts to fade, not from lack of desire, but from a body that no longer responds as it should. But it's not just about sugar in its obvious forms. It's about hidden sugars, carbohydrates that convert rapidly into glucose, processed foods labeled as healthy that quietly wreak havoc on your internal balance, Your body becomes a battlefield, and the prostate is caught in the crossfire. Every donut, every white bread sandwich, every sweetened yogurt piles on, subtly, invisibly. And because the effects aren't immediate, they're dismissed. That's how the damage grows. And here's where it gets even more dangerous. Sugar feeds more than inflammation. It also feeds the abnormal cell growth that can lead to prostate cancer. Studies show that men with high blood sugar levels, insulin resistance, and metabolic syndrome are at a significantly higher risk. The connection isn't theoretical, it's biochemical. Sugar changes your internal environment in a way that fosters decay instead of renewal. And after 50, that internal shift becomes harder and harder to reverse. Now imagine this. Two
men, both 55. One begins to understand the role sugar plays. He cuts back, learns to read labels, swaps out fruit juice for water, learns to enjoy black coffee. The other? He keeps going, unaware. The same breakfasts, the same drinks, the same sweet evening snacks. Fast forward 5 years. One man sleeps through the night, wakes up energized, feels confident and strong. The other is scheduling his third urology appointment and wondering where it all went wrong. The difference isn't genetics, it's awareness, it's choice. It's the willingness to ask, what if I've been poisoning myself slowly, sweetly? What if I've mistaken pleasure for self-care? What if the thing I look forward to is quietly aging me from the inside out? And the truth is, it's not about cutting out joy. It's about replacing silent destruction with mindful strength. There are alternatives, foods that support prostate health rather than sabotage it, habits that reinforce vitality instead of eroding it. But the first step is brutal honesty, to look at what's on your plate, not with guilt, but with clarity, and to ask yourself the question every man over 50 must eventually face: is this worth the cost? Most men don't realize how much their bodies are communicating with them until the signals become impossible to ignore. It starts subtly: a few extra bathroom trips during the night, a strange pressure in the lower abdomen, a sense that something isn't quite right down there, but nothing you can put into words. You brush it off. You tell yourself it's just age, just stress, just life. But beneath those rationalizations, your body is pleading with you to stop ignoring it. And one of the most dangerous things a man can do after 50 is assume that silence means safety. We live in a culture that teaches men to be tough, to tolerate discomfort, to outwork pain. And for decades, that strategy seems to work. Push through it, sleep less, eat on the go, work harder, ignore the little red flags. But aging doesn't reward ignorance, it magnifies it. And the prostate, more than almost any other organ, suffers from what isn't said, what isn't checked, what isn't addressed. One of the silent enemies of the prostate is chronic tension, not just emotional stress, though that's part of it. I'm talking about physical tension, sitting for long hours, holding your breath in traffic, clenching your jaw while reading the news. Constant low-level muscular tension, especially in the pelvic region, creates constriction. Blood flow diminishes. The muscles around the prostate tighten. Over time, this tension changes the way your body functions. What once was ease becomes effort, and for many men, this becomes their new normal. But the body was never designed to live in constant contraction, especially not after 50, when circulation slows and hormonal changes already begin to strain the system. Your prostate needs blood flow, it needs oxygen, it needs relaxation, not just metaphorically, but biologically. When the pelvic floor is constantly tight, it creates pressure on the prostate. That pressure can contribute to inflammation, enlargement, and eventually to urinary problems, sexual dysfunction, and chronic discomfort. And yet, how often are men taught to breathe deeply, to stretch, to be still in their own body with awareness, not distraction? How often are men told that releasing tension isn't weakness, but wisdom? What's more, stress doesn't just affect the muscles, it floods your body with cortisol. And chronically elevated cortisol suppresses testosterone and increases inflammation, two of the worst possible outcomes for prostate health. This isn't about being calm for the sake of your mood. This is about survival. It's about learning to listen to your nervous system before it crashes. Because the truth is, many men think they're handling stress until their body tells them otherwise, often in devastating ways. But there's another layer, deeper and more difficult to admit. Many men carry emotional burdens they've never spoken aloud: regret, shame, anger, grief. These emotions don't just fade, they lodge themselves in the body, in the gut, in the chest, in the pelvis. And the older you get, the more weight they carry, the more your body tightens around them. You begin to live not just in stress, but in a state of silent emotional bracing. And this too creates tension. This too disrupts function. Your prostate isn't just responding to what you eat, it's responding to how you live, how you breathe, how you hold your body, how you process or suppress emotion. For many men, the turning point isn't a new supplement. It's the moment they begin to feel again, to release, to soften the parts of themselves that have been hardened by decades of silence. It can be difficult to believe that such small changes, breathing more fully, stretching daily, walking outside without a phone, can have an impact on something as serious as prostate health. But biology is
built on patterns, and what you do every day becomes your body's reality. If tension is your daily state, disease becomes the background noise. But if you begin to shift, even slightly, toward release, your body begins to heal in places you didn't know were hurting. So the question becomes, what are you holding on to that's holding you back? Where in your body are you clenching, tightening, resisting? And if you allowed yourself to let go, just a little, what might begin to change? There's a hidden paradox that affects nearly every man after 50. As the body begins to slow down, the instinct is to compensate, to push harder, move faster, ignore the warning signs, and double down on effort. But this only deepens the problem. Because what the aging body needs most isn't more pressure, it's precision. Not more noise, but clarity. And when it comes to prostate health, one of the most damaging habits men carry with them into later life is a lack of attention to what fuels their day. I'm not talking about meals, I'm talking about the stimulants they consume, quietly, repeatedly, and often unconsciously. Caffeine is the backbone of most modern routines. The early morning cup of coffee, the energy drink before a workout, the second espresso to survive the afternoon. It's normalized, expected, even celebrated. But for men over 50, this stimulant, which once felt like a tool of productivity, can become a silent saboteur. Not because caffeine is inherently evil, but because the aging prostate responds to it very differently than a younger one. Caffeine is a diuretic. It stimulates the bladder, increases urinary frequency, and can irritate the urinary tract. For a man with an already enlarged or inflamed prostate, that's a perfect storm. What once felt like a harmless pick-me-up now contributes to disrupted sleep, urgency, and the inability to fully empty the bladder. And here's the catch. Most men don't connect the dots. They blame age or the cold weather or just one of those things. Meanwhile, they sip the same drinks every day, unaware that they're actively fueling the symptoms they desperately want to avoid. But it doesn't end with caffeine. Stimulants come in many forms: pre-workout powders, sodas, sugary energy boosters, even some over-the-counter medications. They all increase adrenaline, elevate heart rate, constrict blood vessels, and reduce the body's ability to fully relax.
This affects the entire pelvic region, including the prostate. The body stays in a state of sympathetic activation, fight or flight, when what it actually needs is rest and regulation. This matters deeply because prostate healing doesn't happen under pressure. It happens in rest, in repair, in cycles of recovery that are constantly interrupted by stimulant overuse. And in the long run, this doesn't just affect your prostate. It affects your heart, your sleep, your libido, your clarity of mind. You begin to live in a state of artificial energy, propped up by chemicals that give short bursts but leave deeper systems depleted. What's even more dangerous is the emotional dependency that forms around these habits. You tell yourself you need your morning coffee to function. You can't start the day without that jolt. But behind that belief is a body crying out for balance, a nervous system that's been running too hot for too long. And while caffeine isn't a villain in itself, the question isn't whether it's bad. The question is whether your body can still afford it. Many men find this hard to accept. Giving up caffeine can feel like giving up a part of their identity, their routine, their edge. But what if what you're calling focus is actually just a chemically induced adrenaline loop? What if the fatigue you feel by 2 p.m. isn't your age, but your nervous system crashing from overstimulation? There are quieter energies available, sustainable energies. Energy from real rest, from better sleep, from nutrients your body recognizes and uses cleanly. But they take longer to cultivate. They require stillness, awareness, the ability to say, maybe I've been overclocking a system that's begging me to slow down. And this is where real strength begins. Not in resisting fatigue through more coffee, but in learning to live in a body that doesn't require constant force to function. A body that feels grounded, regulated, clear. Imagine waking up with energy that doesn't come from a cup, but from the steady rhythm of your own restored system. Imagine needing fewer bathroom trips because your bladder isn't overstimulated. Imagine a nervous system that isn't constantly jittery, a sleep cycle that isn't sabotaged at 9 a.m. by something you drank at sunrise. It's possible, but it starts with honesty, with asking the question few men dare to ask after 50. What am I using to push through, and is it helping me or hurting me? There's a quiet kind of suffering that men rarely speak about. It doesn't come with sirens or sudden collapses. It doesn't demand a hospital visit or inspire urgent phone calls. Instead, it grows in silence, day after day, until it becomes part of a man's identity. A low-level discomfort, a feeling of being off, a lack of drive, a fog in the mind. And behind all of this, often without recognition, is a nutrient deficiency so subtle it hides in plain sight. One that directly impacts hormonal balance, cellular repair, and, critically, the health of the prostate. As men age, their ability to absorb and utilize essential nutrients begins to decline. Digestion slows. The liver becomes less efficient. The body, once fast and forgiving, now requires more intentional care. Yet most men don't adjust. They continue eating the same things, living the same way, assuming their multivitamin is enough to cover the bases. But some deficiencies cannot be masked by supplements alone. They accumulate slowly, invisibly, until they begin to change the way your body functions at a foundational level. One of the most damaging deficiencies for men over 50 is zinc. Zinc is not just a mineral, it's a regulator of male health. It plays a central role in testosterone production, immune response, and, most crucially, prostate tissue integrity. In fact, the prostate contains more zinc than any other organ in the male body.
But when levels drop, and they often do after 50, the consequences ripple through every system. Testosterone decreases, inflammation increases, the ability to fight off abnormal cell growth diminishes, and slowly, without knowing why, a man begins to feel like a dimmed version of himself. But zinc isn't the only player. Vitamin D, too, holds immense power. It's not just for bones. It's a hormone-like substance that influences gene expression, immune strength, and anti-inflammatory responses. Low levels of vitamin D have been directly linked to a higher risk of prostate problems, including cancer. And yet, studies show that the majority of men over 50 are deficient, especially those who spend most of their time indoors or who live in regions with low sunlight. You don't feel a vitamin D deficiency like a broken bone. You feel it as fatigue, poor recovery, low mood, and subtle dysfunction that builds until it becomes your new reality. Even omega-3 fatty acids, often dismissed as just heart helpers, are vital for prostate health. They help reduce systemic inflammation, support hormone production, and protect cellular membranes from damage. Yet modern diets are dangerously skewed. Heavy, processed oils, low and clean omega-3 sources like wild fish or flax. The imbalance feeds inflammation, which feeds dysfunction. Your prostate doesn't stand a chance if your body is living in a pro-inflammatory state every single day. What's tragic is how avoidable this all is. But most men aren't taught to think about nutrition as medicine. They're told to tough it out, to just eat better, whatever that means. But eating better after 50 requires specificity, intention, precision. You don't need more food, you need the right fuel. Fuel that repairs, that nourishes, that balances, and above all, fuel that respects the phase of life you're in. The idea of just eating what I've always eaten becomes dangerous after a certain point. Because the body you live in today is not the body you had at 30. Its needs are different, its tolerances are different, and its margins for error are far smaller. You can no longer afford to ignore the question, am I giving my body what it truly needs, or just what's convenient? There's no shame in not knowing. The real danger lies in not wanting to know, in dismissing the wisdom your body is offering through its discomfort. Because these small symptoms, tiredness, low drive, poor sleep, prostate pressure, are not your enemy. They're your early warning system. They are your second chance to intervene before it's too late. Imagine the difference a few quiet shifts could make. Adding zinc-rich foods, getting sunlight or supplementing vitamin D with medical guidance, swapping inflammatory oils for clean, cold-pressed sources, drinking water instead of sugary drinks, eating for repair, not just pleasure. Not because it's trendy, but because your body is literally asking for it. The question is, are you listening? You've spent decades building a life, through work, through effort, through sacrifice. You've endured pain without complaint, carried burdens without applause, and kept going when others would have stopped. But now your body is asking for something different, not more strength, not more toughness. It's asking for awareness, for wisdom, for a shift from survival to care. The prostate is not just a part of your anatomy, it's a mirror. It reflects how you've treated your body, how you've responded to stress, what you've chosen to prioritize, and what you've chosen to ignore. And the truth is, it's never just one thing that leads to decline. It's 1,000 small choices repeated over time. But it also takes only one decision to begin reclaiming your power. Stop ignoring the signs. Stop assuming it's too late. Stop waiting for a diagnosis to force you into action. Because real prevention is quiet. It begins in moments like this, when you're willing to listen, to learn, and to change. If anything in this video resonated with you, if even one part made you stop and think, take a moment to support this message.
Subscribe to this channel so you never miss a conversation that could change your health. Click the like button to help more men see what they're not being told. And leave a comment below. Share your story, your questions, or simply say, "I'm ready to change." Because your voice might be the one that helps another man realize he's not alone. And neither are you. You still have time. Now make it count.